You know, when we think about massive construction projects, skyscrapers that touch the clouds, dams that hold back rivers, we usually think about concrete and steel. But the most valuable, most critical resource? It's time. Every single day is planned, priced, and fought over. So what happens when that plan doesn't just bend, but completely shatters? That's what we're going to figure out. This quote from Martin Luther King Jr. just hits the nail on the head for what we're talking about. In a construction contract, time isn't just ticking away in the background. Nope, it's an active ingredient. It's either the tool that helps you build something incredible or the weapon that can lead to absolute financial ruin. It all comes down to how it's managed. And that's the core question, isn't it? I mean, picture a project where the legally binding deadline just poof, vanishes. It's not pushed back, it's not extended, it's just gone, erased. It sounds totally impossible, right? But it happens. And when it does, the consequences are just staggering. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the basics of how time even works in a contract. Then we'll look at why things get delayed in the first place and the usual ways to fix it. After that, we dive into this wild legal idea called time at large, see how it actually plays out in a place like Ethiopia, and then wrap up with how to keep this mess from happening to begin with. All right, first things first. Every construction project is basically a balancing act between three things: cost, quality, and time. And time isn't just a guideline, it's a fundamental promise. It's got its own official start, and more importantly, its own official finish line. So, here's the thing. The clock doesn't just start when the first truck shows up. The commencement date is a specific, legally defined moment. It's often triggered by a formal notice from an engineer or the day the contractor officially gets the keys to the site. From that exact moment, the countdown is on. And this right here is the finish line. The time for completion is the end date. If you're a contractor, you have to cross this line on time, or you start facing penalties. We're talking serious money, often called liquidated damages, where you're paying a huge pre-agreed fee for every single day you're late. It can be absolutely crippling. But let's be real, no major project has ever gone 100% according to plan. It just doesn't happen. Delays are a fact of life. So the real question isn't if they'll happen, it's why they happen and whose fault it is. Generally, you can sort delays into three main buckets. First, you've got delays caused by the employer. Maybe they didn't get you access to the site on time, or they keep changing their mind on the design. Then you have contractor-caused delays. Bad planning, not enough workers. And finally, there are neutral events, things nobody can control, like a freak hurricane or, a global pandemic. And the contract treats each of these very, very differently.
Okay, so if we know delays are going to happen, how do contracts deal with them without just falling apart? Well, they have this brilliant little built-in safety valve, the extension of time, or EOT.
Now, here's a super common misconception. A lot of people think an EOT is just a get-out-of-jail-free card for the contractor. But it's not. It's actually crucial for the employer, too. By granting an EOT, the employer sets a new, legally binding deadline. Without that new deadline, they could actually lose the right to penalize the contractor for any future delays. It's the mechanism that keeps the whole contract alive. But what happens when that safety valve is broken? What if the employer is the one who causes a delay, but there's no way in the contract to actually grant that extension? This is where things get really weird, and we arrive at the heart of our story, the strange, powerful legal idea of time at large. Just chew on that for a second. The person who sets the deadline does something that makes it impossible to meet, and then provides no way to fix it. The law has a very, very specific response to this scenario. And this is it. When time is set at large, that original completion date is gone, wiped out. The contractor is no longer bound by it. Their only duty now is to finish the project in a reasonable time. And you can bet reasonable suddenly becomes a very expensive and debatable word, often decided in a courtroom. Wow, and this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at that shift. With a fixed date, the deadline is set in stone. The penalty is automatic. But when time goes at large, the deadline gets fuzzy, and this is the huge part. The employer loses their right to those automatic penalties. They can't just deduct $1 million a week anymore. They now have to go to court and prove their actual financial losses, which is way, way harder. The entire power dynamic of the project just gets flipped on its head. So you might be thinking, okay, that's just some old English law thing, right? Well, not exactly.
This concept has real teeth all over the world. So let's take a look at how it's been recognized and applied in the Ethiopian legal system.
One of the key legal tools here is a principle from Article 1738 of Ethiopia's Civil Code. It's called the contra proferentem rule. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically a you wrote it, you're stuck with it rule. If the contract is unclear or contradicts itself, and it was drafted by the employer, any ambiguity is going to be interpreted against them. They can't benefit from their own confusing paperwork. And get this, here's the proof in the pudding. In a real-world arbitration case in Ethiopia, the tribunal looked at all the facts and made this exact call. They literally used the phrase time at large and confirmed the contractor's only job was to finish in a reasonable time. This was a huge deal. It officially cemented the concept in Ethiopian law. The other main way this happens is through something called the prevention principle. Basically, you can't trip someone and then blame them for falling. If the employer actively prevents the contractor from meeting the deadline, either by causing a delay where there's no EOT clause or by having their engineer unfairly block a legitimate extension, the law steps in. The employer can't cause the problem and then profit from it by collecting penalties. Okay, so after all that legal deep diving, this might all seem super complex, but it really boils down to some practical, common sense lessons. How do you stop your project's timeline from completely unraveling and ending up in this time-at-large nightmare? All right, let's run through 7 key takeaways. For the employer, it starts with the basics. Hand over the site on time and approve plans quickly. You can't start the race if the track isn't even open. Then, both sides need to constantly check actual progress against the plan. No surprises. When delays happen, give early warnings. For the contractor, your extension of time claims need to be rock solid, with tons of documentation. And finally, for the employer, you have to respond to those claims fairly and on time. Unfairly shooting down a valid claim is one of the fastest ways to find yourself in a time-at-large situation. It really all comes down to proactive and fair management from everyone involved. And that brings us to a final thought. Because while time at large might sound like a big win for a contractor, a project that's this broken rarely benefits anyone. It just leads to more disputes, exploding costs, and total uncertainty. So it makes you wonder, when that contractual clock shatters, who really ends up paying the price for all that lost time?